Okay, welcome everyone to our very first Shade Canyon podcast. And I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to respond to some of the wonderful feedback we got on our first Kelvin parent survey. And so I've invited a number of people here to talk with us today. And so just to start off the top, I'm Tim Delatorre. I am the administrator here. And why don't we get Morgan and then Maggie and Birdie after me to introduce yourselves.
I'm Morgan Vogel-Chinnick, and I'm one of the co-founders of Shade Canyon School and the current board president, with a couple of children also attending the school.
And I'm Maggie Lieb. I'm the vice principal here at Shade Canyon.
And I'm Brittany Siegel, or Mrs. Siegel, Birdie. I'm the office manager, and I also have two children enrolled here.
Thanks, everyone. And I also have a child enrolled here. Hey. Morgan, can you just speak to just a little bit about you're one of the founders and you're a board president. What was the vision for Shade Canyon when you started this school?
So I co-founded the school with Savannah Mitchell, who's our second and third grade teacher, and we began this project in 2018. We each had a 1-year-old at the time, and we both knew enough about Waldorf education that we knew that it was a completely new model of education that could come serve this county. Savannah grew up in Lake County, and when she went to her teacher training for early childhood education, she visited a Waldorf kindergarten classroom and was so deeply touched by the difference in the way the children were held and the hominess of the classroom. And as she went through her teacher training, and as I went through getting to know Waldorf education as a parent, we saw that the attention to the individual child's needs, the attention to the arts, both practical arts and the creative visual arts, the attunement to the natural world, and this sort of way of learning with all of our intelligences that's woven into Waldorf education was just a really revolutionary and grounded way of allowing children to develop naturally with really good support. And so we developed this vision that, going to a private Waldorf school, other places, tuition can be $17,000 for kindergarten. And we knew that in Lake County, we wanted to have this revolutionary form of education, but we wanted it to be accessible to everyone. So that's how we decided to make a tuition-free public charter school. And it was a much more challenging mission than we ever imagined to get our doors open, but our doors have been open now for 2 years. And I couldn't be more pleased to see how the school is developing with our incredible staff and our blossoming student body. We're growing, and it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, thank you, Morgan. So yeah, I really want to just jump into, there was just such high quality feedback we got from our parents. I just want to say thank you to all of you that took that time to just actually write down your comments, because I just want you to know that they're received, they've been read and thought over, and we really appreciate that. And there was a number of questions and concerns that came back that I thought this might be a better format for recording a video and talking about them rather than trying to write a multi-page response for everybody. So with that, let's just jump in. And I think one of the very first comments I want to address was safety and security concerns on campus. There were some questions about maybe having better fencing and securing gates and limiting outside access during school hours to random people that pass through our campus. So I think, maybe Maggie and Birdie and me, we can kind of address that. But Maggie, did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, we're working very hard on school safety, and the fact that we have two buildings here, we have the main building and then we have the other building with the two classrooms in it. We're very conscious of children traveling to and fro between the two buildings, and we're keeping a very close eye on them when they do so. And I also wanted to draw everybody's attention to the fact that we've been working hard on our comprehensive school safety plan. And so we have a first draft of a school safety plan that will be discussed at the board meeting today at 2:30. And so we've worked hard on that. We've developed an emergency drill drill schedule the children have gotten accustomed to and familiar with. We have been having conversations about shoring up all of our safety supplies. We've been designating roles and responsibilities to staff. So we're making a lot of really good progress on school safety in terms of the school safety plan. And we would very much welcome parents' input and thoughts on the plan, which was sent out last week. And also if parents would like to attend the hearing on the plan, that will be open for input, and we very much value your feedback. And also I wanted to assure parents that all of our staff are trained in safety procedures. Everybody's first aid CPR trained. We've received crisis prevention intervention training. And all of these things, I think, are ways that we can make sure that the school is a safe place for our kiddos.
Thank you, Maggie. And Bertie, do you have anything to add to that?
Not that specifically, but as far as, well, there's a few things on our Calvin survey about people passing through the school grounds. And that is something I do monitor to the best of my ability. And I do go talk to people if they are on campus during school hours. And so does Mr. Vaughn, who's right there by that back gate. He does keep a watch on that. But actually just yesterday, we had a parent volunteer fill in the gap in the fence. And we do have it padlocked. We can keep it closed during school hours. Building a fence is a big project. I think that building a fence comment might have been mine as a parent of the school. I also would like a fence around the whole property, but funding for that is something that we're always working on. You know, we have funding for the school to operate and to keep going, but these extra projects require extra work. So it's definitely something we talk about behind closed doors quite often. How are we going to get a fence? I mean, just today, Tim was talking to the fire marshal, like, where would the gate be? How far back does it need to be? So I'd love parents to just know we are talking about the same things that you're talking about, and we are trying to bring that here to as quickly as we can. Then there's the comment about having more supervision at pickup, drop off, and recess times. We have flown a position to help cover the grades, an assistant in the classroom to help during those times and particularly go out during the recess times. We also just did kind of rework when teachers take breaks so that they can be more available during lunch and break times. And then for kindergarten specifically, I've been trying to really go help with all the kindergartners and all the shoes and all the pants and all the things. So yeah, I find it really interesting because I mean, I'm here working, but I also am a parent. So I do see a lot of that stuff, and I do try to adapt and improve in these areas almost every day.
Okay, thanks, Bertie.
Uh-huh.
Let's move on to the next topic, which was school growth and expansion. I think a lot of questions there from parents about, well, this is great right now, you're kindergarten through third grade, but where is fourth grade going to go? And how are we going to get to an eighth grade, you know, a K through 8 campus? And maybe I'll just, you know, I think between, Morgan and myself, we've been talking about this a lot recently. And I don't know, Morgan, if I toss this to you, what would you want to say about this?
Well, so I want to say that before we opened the school, we were looking at this, and we actually had to go through an entire CEQA study, which is called the California Environmental Quality Act. I mean, that's the acronym, or that's what the acronym stands for, where we had to assess the viability of having the school on this site. And as part of that, we did develop full architectural drawings and civil engineering plans for the full expansion of the site up to 8th grades. So we actually do have plans to expand up to 8th grades. We actually have like physical plans drawn up where, and it's going to involve quite a bit of shifting around of the campus. So in the short term, what we're doing is we're adding on this kind of temporarily, like the next year or two, we're hoping that we can stick a modular classroom on the site that will be kind of a temporary location while we continue to raise money for the larger site expansion, because the larger site expansion is going to require grading the entire site, running some utilities, that involves trenching, and the eventual plans will move the parking area out to the front of the building where the garden area currently is, and we'll have some parking along the sides of the building, but pretty much the entire back half of the campus will be fenced off classroom and play area. So there's going to be a lot of rearranging that happens, and part of the game we're playing right now is allowing our enrollment to get large enough that we start to have more financial reserves at the end of the year. It's kind of like rolling a snowball down a hill. The snow starts to collect the further we go along, and so I would say by year 3 or 4 we're going to have a lot more flexibility and more like, for instance, one of our ideas for how to raise money for developing the site is there's actually a nonprofit organization that will purchase a school site and develop a school site and build it in agreement with the school, and then they will lease the finished school buildings to the school, and it's kind of like a lease to purchase. So we're like, that's a really great option for us to look into, but that is not available to us until we have 100 students. That organization won't work with us. So there's just a lot of funding opportunities that will actually open up to us as we get just a little bit bigger. But the good news is that as far as space goes, we actually have figured out, there is space on the site for us to have all of our, all 8 grades plus a couple kindergarten classrooms and TK on site. And it's not like we're going to have spacious, giant playground area on the school site with that, but there will be play area, and we do have the gift of being right next door to the park. So, yeah.
Thank you, Morgan. And
so we've got I would say the basic summary of what I just said is we have plans that will work, and we're also in this journey of being flexible and responding to, the conditions that currently are available to us.
Yeah. And just to say, for example, those of you that maybe know that finances are tight this year, one of the reasons for that is that we were down 20 from what a marketing firm projected that we would be at this year. So we're starting with a much smaller number of students on campus than was originally projected, and that just makes it so that we don't have a lot of money right now to expand, to be able to hire the teams to come in and do the work that we would do normally. So we are leaning more on parent volunteers to help us, the graciousness of the local community. So if you or someone really wants to help us get behind this project because you can see the need, we definitely do need help to be able to get ourselves in place for next year. So the things that we need right now are, we need a nice double wide or double classroom modular, and we need help with grading the site and chip sealing the area where the modular will be placed. And so those are the kinds of things that they're gonna cost some money, and we really would like to see if we can rely on our local community to help us pull that off. So I'm hoping that with the savings we have this year, we've been working hard to save a little bit of money. We can get there, but it's going to take some extra effort from donors to get that project done. So, and that just buys us hopefully 2 years, which means that we can get our numbers up. Like Morgan said, we can get above that 100 student threshold. We can start looking to larger organizations that we can partner with, as well as we grow larger, the buffer and our margins on our operating margins get better, and we can start to save more for larger site expansion plans as well. So, yeah. I think that's, anything else, Morgan?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Let's jump into the next one.
We're on track. I'll say we are on track to continue with our 1 grade each year expansion. Yep. So that our current 3rd graders are our first graduating 8th graders in 5 years.
That's my mission. I'm really committed to that. So, okay, parent teacher communication and connectedness. I think maybe whoever wants to speak on that one, but just there was some thoughts that many parents felt, they felt connected and appreciate the communication happening from the school, but there was even requests for more newsletters and more direct communication about incidents, and parents asking for more after school parent meeting times, for example. I think sometimes the parent meeting times are during the school day when parents are away at work. And I might just say in regard to that last comment, some of these things we might be better to follow up in a second podcast if this is something that people appreciate, where maybe we bring our teachers on to talk about some of those things, because we're really looking at more the whole big picture and not going to get into the classroom specifics right now, because that's really handled by the teachers primarily. So and then just one more thought, there were suggestions for more events involving parents, like family fun nights, which are all really great things. And I'm hoping that the parent community council can help us take some of those on so that we can partner with them and have more activities for all of our families.
And the greatest way to make sure those things, or to help those things happen, is get involved in the parent community council. We meet, oh no, we just changed the time, so I want to make sure I have the time. It's on a Thursday every month, and that we're available to meet on Zoom and in person. And like that's the hub of parent activity. So if you want to see something happening at the school, join us at the PCC meeting.
I believe it's at 2:30 on the second Thursday,
The
right?
second
Margaret?
Thursday.
Yeah.
Second, okay, that's
Yeah.
what was in my mind too.
And
Thank you.
I had nominated some parents to lead the kind of parent outreach committee. But if that's something you're really interested in, I encourage all parents to do that. I would do all of that if I wasn't doing other things. But I would say that I did find several free trainings and free classes that I am going to try to get up on our school cues calendar for parents to access, and try to work with the PCC on creating a night around that for parents. And the topics can be Waldorf education, parenting in general. There's lots of free trainings about media. So I am looking into a lot of interesting education opportunities for our families. But the family fun nights, I think definitely that like we're going to need to talk to teachers. And I would love to get that going as well.
I will just
Yeah.
add one more thing. We're hoping to get a new student information system up and running that I think will have a more improved communication platform. And so in some ways, I think the lack of communication, or if there has been a lack of communication, it's really just because the system we have is quite clunky and hard to use. And I'm looking forward to something that will be, I'm hoping, a little bit more simple and easier to use. I would like to send out more regular parent notifications, but also not flood you, right? So if we can kind of find that balance between letting you know what's going on, but not overwhelming you with those details. And so I think, the other thing I'll say is for parents that have more requests on like, hey, I would like to know more about incidents with my child, or if you have any sort of request for us, just let us know, because a lot of times we have to balance that. Do we send parents every single time there's an incident request, incident with their child? Do they want to know that, or do they not? Because some parents, it can be really overwhelming for you to have something every time your child has something that comes up that we just document for our own internal purposes. So I think just kind of talking about what your level of request for communication is could be helpful if you feel like we're falling too far on one side or the other. We'd be happy to work with you on that.
And, a message to all parents, feel free to come on in. I think parents this year are feeling like they don't come into the school that often. They're picking up outside at the grades classroom, or we're sending kids out the door. You guys are all welcome to come in here at any time. And if I'm available, I will chat your ear off. So do feel free to come inside and talk to us.
Yeah, and just jumping in there, we're all about building community, and I think any successful school builds community between school staff and kids and families, and we want families and parents to feel connected and to feel part of the community. And that ties in with our Blue Zones approval. We were recently a Blue Zones approved organization, and the whole Blue Zones idea is about enhancing well-being and helping people live longer, healthier, quality lives. And one of the principles of Blue Zones is connecting people. And so I like the idea of family fun nights, making people feel like a sense of belonging. And I just wanted to remind everybody that we're having ribbon cutting ceremony celebrating our Blue Zones approval here at the school on February 28th. And that's a great opportunity to come in and, be a part of the community. I believe we're having it at 1:15. And we're hoping to turn it into a garden day. So, families are welcome to come in and work with us in the garden, because we've also recently been able to acquire a grant for working in the garden. So we've got a lot of great, exciting work to do. So bring your garden tools, bring your garden gloves, and come and hang out with us and experience that sense of community. And then also part of being a Blue Zones project approved organization, at the end of March 28th, we're going to have a cooking demonstration. And it's for all Shade Canyon School families. And we'll have it over at the Kelseyville Presbyterian Church. I believe it's at 5:30. We'll be sending out more notifications about that. But, we'll have an Eventbrite platform created for that. So we would like to ask parents to RSVP so we know how many to expect. But these are all things that I think will be a great way to foster that sense of community, which is so important for our school and for our kids.
Great. Thanks, Maggie. Let's jump into the next category of comments we received from parents, peer connectedness and social development. So there was some, generally speaking, people seem pretty happy with our community building efforts, but there were some good suggestions like, implementing more team building activities. And there was a comment about limiting overly competitive games in class, some concerns about bullying and student conflicts, and maybe some buddy systems or ways to encourage inclusive play. Without getting too far into the classroom, I do know that, Birdie and I, we've talked some about like our playground, and, one of the things we don't have balls. There's certain kinds of things we purposely have limited in our playground to try to eliminate opportunities for competitive games or people feeling left out. But Birdie, I don't know, do you have anything you want to add to that?
That is really true, Tim. The Waldorf pedagogy has like really clear indications on when you can bring in certain kinds of play and certain kinds of balls and all those things. And so in general, the playground is designed for creative play, for collaborative play, for imagination. And it does not include games that we would feel cause competition. But then there are kids out there, and kids have a knack of figuring it out on their very own. So just working with the staff and how we communicate to the kids about, we're not going to play that game, or, and these are the reasons why, and having everyone be on the same page about it. I could go on a real deep dive with you guys about like all the influences that bring that into play, but that's not going to be this podcast. That's a whole different one. And I would say that some of the things Maggie's talking about with Blue Zones and all of the things that they're championing there, those kind of can come easily into the classroom and be used with children to promote connectedness, to promote healthy lifestyle. And then when, the kids are feeling connected and feeling empathy, they kind of don't play competitive things quite so much. But in general, I said in general like 3 times. Our games teacher, Sensei Lance, like he is specifically choosing things to not be competitive. Like the books that he's going off of, the courses he's taking, the classrooms he's watching, it is all to create that skill of having something physical, some sort of movement class that does not involve heavy competition. So he's very committed to that. And so are the rest of the teachers. Again,
and I'll say that instead of competition, it's reaching for this cooperative environment in the classroom, in the games, which is reaching for a more cooperative world is really what we're aiming for.
Yes. Yeah. And then, bullying and student conflicts, I think that's a big topic at all schools. And, we're working on it every day. I myself try to gain skills in talking to the kids and conflict resolution. I know we've been walking around some peer conflict management, like setting up, having peer counselors, some of the older kids being able to talk to the little kids and stuff like that. It's just we don't have quite the grades that we need for that. Like that is such a high forebrain, skill that we can grow that program as our kids get older. We have really little kids here, so we're kind of waiting on that to when it's developmentally appropriate. But I do think we could bring buddy systems back. We did some of that last year, having some kindergarten buddies and all that across the grades, just kind of being together more in these collaborative situations, I think would be helpful. So I can't wait to talk to teachers and figure more out about that. And I would always encourage parents to just spend some time. I was watching last night on YouTube. There's some really good videos about Waldorf education, how that it just does that anyway. It's a big subject. It's something you have to spend time looking into on your own, or come talk to me for an hour in the office. But it's fascinating, and it's all right there. It's all in how we're trying to teach. Really brings a lot of these things anyway. You just have to know how to kind of translate the language of Rudolf Steiner. So
Awesome.
So, yeah, if I could jump in just briefly about the bullying and conflict resolution. We have told children, and hopefully they do feel comfortable coming forward if there's ever a problem or ever an issue, come and talk to us. They know they will be listened to. They can talk to any member of staff, and we want them to continue to feel that way, and we want them to feel heard. And I've had many, many conversations with kids, and I feel like the more conversations I have with them, the better I understand them, the better I get to know them. I've been talking to parents, and I've seen some real progress in a lot of kids based on these conversations, because we're really starting to understand each other. So that's really encouraging. And then just briefly talking about the buddy systems. I've seen buddy systems work very effectively in schools where I've taught in the past. And those buddy systems where the older kids work with the younger kids are so beneficial, because the younger kids have someone to look up to as a role model. And the older kids, if they have some issues or social anxiety, it's really amazing to see how they rise to the occasion. They understand that they are, being a role model, and, a whole different side comes out. So, we're certainly working on trying to have more buddy systems and pairing up the kids so that they can be role models for each other, and the younger kids can benefit from being around the older kids. And then as far as, the limiting overly competitive games, I think that certainly we want to have activities that are collaborative and encourage teamwork. And some of you are probably aware of our Great Kindness Challenge that we had a few weeks ago, which was a wonderful week. The whole purpose of it was to encourage a culture of kindness, and to encourage our kids to come up with ways to show, acts of kindness towards each other, complimenting someone, opening the door for someone, helping someone up who fell down, drawing a picture for someone. And it really, it was a successful week. And then part of what we did during that week was we had a little 15-minute dance party out in the play yard, and the kids really enjoyed it. We said that, you need to be kind to each other, but you also need to show kindness towards your body, and we can do that by exercising. So we had this dance party, and the kids loved it, and they said, when are we doing it again? And those kinds of activities, I think, are valuable, because everybody's a winner, and everybody participates together. And with something like that, there's a synergy that it creates. So those are the kinds of activities that I think are really helpful and beneficial when it comes to, peer connectedness and social development.
And I'll just add one more thought I had, which is like, we're a small school, we're a growing school. We've been working out our policies, working out how do we respond to certain types of incidents or behaviors. But one of the things I think, as we've been working through this year, I can say is, I look back on where we were in September when we started and where we are now, and there is just a remarkable change in the students, their growth, their ability to feel comfortable coming to us with concerns. If you all ever get the opportunity just to watch Birdie, she's incredible with these kids. Like I feel like you know each one, you know their temperaments, you know what you just, there's this, and I think their teachers know this too. So it's like we have this community here where the kids really feel seen. And yes, we do have boundaries and we do have rules. And when you break them, we still love you and we're going to figure this out. And it's
Mhm.
like, it's just a
Yeah.
really, I don't know, I think working, like to me, more than the classroom at the moment, especially with these younger kids, the actual social emotional work that's happening within our community of our staff here, it's incredible. These people really love all of our kids and they are committed to improving themselves and learning how to have more tools to meet the kids where they need to be met and just to really helping to give these kids what they need to get through the day in a way when they're having a hard time and also when they're having a good time to encourage them. So I don't know. I think there's so many things that we could be doing better, but I have to say, like we have everyone here has a big heart for the kids, and I just see it.
Yeah. And I think that kind of speaks to one of the other comments we had about behavior expectations and leniency and just kind of what are the consequences. And here, we're embracing this different way of looking at consequences, at punishment. And I mean, I don't even use that term anymore, really. And when you watch it looks so different than what you might have been used to and what you might have seen at other schools and how you were raised and all those things, that it can seem like nothing's happening, or it's not mean enough or something. But it's really just this shifting perspective on what it means to educate this whole child, to give them the skills to interact with the world, to enter any room with confidence in knowing who they are, and to establish that when they do something wrong, it's really important that we don't break down who they are, that we don't take from them their confidence or their ability to speak up for themselves. And so I think, though there definitely needs to be, clear guidelines here, and we need to have our boundaries and we have our expulsion policy, all those things, we need to work with the kids and not get in their way and make sure we're allowing them to feel safe in misbehavior, feel safe in, bad choices, whatever they are, so that they still trust us and they still trust this place to build it back up, right? We're not, it's very different. It's very new. I parent that way at home and I get a lot of weird looks. And so I encourage parents to just understand we're really looking at a whole picture of their child. I call it long game education. Like, it's long game. Like, we want really successful adults. Right now, from my 5-year-old students here, I just want a 5-year-old student, and they're crazy. So that's what I expect, right? Like, we have to have real expectations. So that's my little soapbox there on that.
Thanks, Birdie. I think I'm just going to lump number 5 and 6 together. We have sort of like classroom and behavior management and academics and instruction. And I think most of those will deal with the teachers on a separate podcast in the future, but maybe we could talk just a little bit. I don't know if Morgan or Birdie, you want to talk a little bit about Waldorf education and how traditionally speaking, when it comes to academics, it's a little bit of a different expectation there for the way that things play out in the grades. You guys want to talk to that?
I
I
could
actually
say something.
wondered, and
Go ahead,
I
Morgan.
would love to hear from you, but I also wanted to ask, from what you were just saying, Birdie. I mean, I know our time is short, and maybe we would save this for another podcast, but I would love to hear you talk about a couple specific examples of how boundary setting does work in this new model, because I am also practicing a very different way of setting boundaries with children in my home, and also in setting up this school. And I am seeing a lot of effectiveness in it, but it just doesn't look like the traditional boundary setting and behavior management. So I don't know if now is the time, but I wanted to kind of piggyback on what you were saying and say, like, actually boundaries are being set. There is a mirror being held up to the children about how their choices and their actions are affecting other people, and where the lines are at the school of what is going to be done and what is not going to be done at the school. but the way we communicate that and the way we work with students around that is different. So I don't know, what do you think? Future podcast or?
Well, I could give a quick, I mean, I have a specific one in mind of just, and so I had a student who was very upset about something that had gone on in the classroom and was being, verbally disruptive. So they had to come in and sit with me. And this student was kicking chairs and yelling at me and had a lot to say about how upset they were. And this response we have here, what I do, I just sit there. I don't need to yell at the behavior. It's not a behavior that I need to correct. This child is very upset about something, right? So I sit, I don't let them leave, and I make sure they're not going to hurt anyone. The physical space is safe, but I don't engage in the yelling. I don't try to stop it. I don't try to correct it. I just make sure that this particular child I know is not going to run away from me, right? So you have to really know them. That's kind of the first thing, is really know the kids. And you do that through observation. But yeah, maybe this is a whole podcast. But in any case, I sat there with this child for about 20 minutes, just sitting, and they know me well enough to know that I'm not going to let them, hurt. So they're safe there. And slowly those behaviors start to go away. They start to go away. They're calming. And I say, what are you worried about? Or what do you need? What happened? It's never starting with, you can't do this, what you did was wrong, you can't, kids aren't going to learn something when they're that upset, right? So wait for them to settle, ask what they need. I got to the bottom of it. There was a play date that was supposed to happen, and now it was ruined, and this person's going to be mad at me. And the whole thing comes out, and then I can use my big grown-up brain to say, oh, this child is not choosing to do this because they hate school and they hate their teacher and they hate all the things they said. This is all because they made a choice that they can't take back, and now they can't have their play date, and they're very sad. So I'm not working with a mean, aggressive, hateful child. I'm working with a sad child. And that's where I work from. Okay, well, how can I help? Can I talk to mom about it with you? Can I, I will be there to support you. No, you're not going on the play. Yeah, you're probably not. And no, I'm not sending you back to class. Like, I don't try to say, oh yeah, it's going to be fine now because you told me all your feelings. No, I acknowledge the feelings. I ask how I can help with that, but you're still not going to get to do the thing. So as an educator and as a parent specifically, you have to be really powerfully in control of your own emotions and able to absorb all of that behavior so you can get to what's going on with them, right? And that's kind of how I think of it here, and how I think of it at home, and how I try to relate to every single one of them. Because you have to give them, there's a term called the most generous interpretation. Like, you have to assume kids are not coming from a negative place. That's grown-ups, guys. Okay. So, does that help at all?
Yeah, well, if I can just say what I'm observing in that is two things. One, it's the behavior isn't the thing. That's not the thing to focus on. And so many times we get hung up on, this child is very angry and it's making me uncomfortable, so I have to make that stop. As the educator or the parent, I'm feeling anxious being around this behavior, so I need to make it stop as soon as possible. If everyone's safe in the situation and you allow those emotions to be expressed, then what I hear you doing, Birdie, is actually you're giving the child the chance to observe themselves and their emotions as those emotions play out. And as they're able to express their emotions and then start looking at why they're having those emotions, that is actually slowly teaching the child to observe their own emotions and make choices about how they want to interact with their emotions.
Right.
So instead of just telling them, you have to stop this behavior, you have to stop feeling angry or sad, you're actually saying, oh, you have these emotions, this is a normal thing, and you actually have the power, eventually, as your brain develops, you're going to have the power to choose how you want to act based on those. So
and that's really it.
So beautiful to me.
They have to get older.
Yeah.
We have they're little here still. People think they're, third grade, oh, they're big. They're little. Yeah, thank you, Morgan. That's a really good way of kind of summarizing all that. And then, I will say, like, there's, accountability for misbehavior. And a lot of times, especially with our kindergartners, like, they feel real bad when they misbehave.
Yep.
And in a lot of ways, that's enough holding them accountable. You don't need to take away a toy or have this external consequence. You can tell when a kid already feels bad. So with our littlest kids, I really like to point out they hold themselves accountable often. You could just tell by how uncomfortable they are. So, but yeah, it's ongoing. And it's interesting to balance, what we know about child development, what I think all the staff here really embraces about behavior management and all that stuff with a public school setting, right? So, that's all getting worked out as we work on policy and we have all these really defined things. But
Yeah.
can
I have you both to speak briefly to, I don't want to hold up too long, but just the parents that are concerned about their kids maybe falling behind academically here, like talk a little bit about the play out, how Waldorf education tends to play out in especially in like a public education system.
So I actually watched this really interesting video last night that explained it pretty well. But again, I encourage parents to do research because it's out there. So at a Waldorf school, using this kind of curriculum, it is slower. And that's because children develop slowly into these things. And so I'm going to use the description that I just learned. And so you imagine it's like a mountain, right? And at the top of the mountain is reading. Okay. So let's just focus on reading. We're going to teach reading. Well, we don't introduce academic reading until, first grade, we start doing kind of writing, but second and third is when we're really getting into reading. And that's because, like, at the very top of this is reading, right? Down here is listening, auditory perception, artistic expression of words, right? There's all these things that are underneath that are really important to get to reading. And if you just start at the top, go ahead.
Understanding and passion for story, for like actually what communicating with words accomplishes in our world. I just want to say part of that foundation of the mountain is that oral storytelling, right? Receiving stories and telling stories. Like, and if you love that, then you're going to want to know
exactly, Morgan, how to use words eventually. Exactly. And you have to be able to develop your imagination down there too. You have to be able to create those pictures in your own head first, which will also allow you to ignite that passion for reading, right? So that's what we're doing in early childhood education in the kindergartens and the TK is we're laying the groundwork for all of that passion, that excitement, that wonder, and we're painting things and we're drawing things. And then they start writing in first grade because writing does come before reading, really, because you're basically taking those sounds that you're hearing and you're giving them a symbol, right? A letter. And once you've associated sounds and pictures with a symbol, A, B, C, D, then you're like, oh, I can read that? Oh, and you get excited. And it's really important to lay that foundation. And what we see in mainstream schools is we go straight for the top, straight for the very top. And it's just, they're not ready. You can do it, but it's harder and it's hard fought, and you lose certain things too. You lose, imagination sometimes. And that's another thing we could talk about media, why media is such a huge deal when you're trying to teach reading this way, teach anything this way. So another thing I recently learned, just to give parents an idea of what I'm talking about when I say developmentally appropriate. So when you read, you go left to right and up to down, and the actual muscles in your eyes that do that are not strong enough and not developed enough until you're like 7, 8, right? So you're trying to teach reading to a 5-year-old whose eyes don't really do that the way they need to. They need to do other things first. And it's harder. You can cause nearsightedness. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But the summary is just, you have to lay this really solid foundation to give the children an inward desire to learn to read, to learn the science, to learn about things. And that's what's really important at our school, is that, you know, they are enlivened from within, from their own imaginations, to say, oh, I really want to know more about South African history, whatever it is. And it starts in the early grades. So something we're seeing at our
Yeah.
Go ahead, Morgan.
Oh, I had a couple things I wanted to jump in on that topic, but
Uh-huh.
I can wait.
I was just going to say, our school specifically, we have some of our grades kids who did not go to Waldorf school, right? So we're kind of dealing with this kind of wave that they're on, like where they had this foundation laid that doesn't match up with what we're trying to. So we do see a little bit of like, how do we get them on track with what we're doing? And then I think we need to educate our parents more on what to expect, right? We need to have a more transparent, like, this is what we're doing here, this is why it works, this is what it's going to look like, so that they do understand that we're going to go slower and that it might feel like falling behind academically, but it is actually not.
Yeah, I think that's really important, is to understand that it's a very intentional choice how we're introducing academic subjects in the lower grades and in early childhood education. And you know, the analogy that I love hearing with Waldorf that makes so much sense to me is seeing the child as a flower. You know, if you think about a rosebud, and anyone who's tried to open a rosebud before it's ready to bloom, you get some warped petals, and it's not going to be the fully formed, beautiful, open rose. And that's the way that child development works. And I think a lot of times in our mainstream system, there's this feeling that if a child isn't showing up like this fully formed miniature version of an adult, then we're not succeeding in education. And what Waldorf education says is actually really there's a lot going on inside the bud before it opens. And we're providing a space that holds that time and holds that openness for all that's going on inside that rosebud before it actually opens into something that we can see and measure. And the other thing I wanted to say about that is that as part of writing the charter petition, I actually did a survey of standardized test results, looking at, I think it was 4 different Waldorf charter schools that had an average of very similar demographics to our area, so socioeconomic, like money demographics, as well as different ethnic groups that matched Kelseyville's demographics. And what I saw there, and what has been shown, throughout Waldorf education, is there's something called the Waldorf curve. So as we're introducing the academic subjects more slowly, the standardized tests for Waldorf students are slightly behind mainstream standardized tests up until about 3rd grade. And then, or actually up until 5th grade, up until about 5th grade. But when I looked at these schools and the general data for Waldorf education too, comparing them to mainstream standardized test scores and Waldorf standardized test scores, once those kids reached 5th grade, their scores started to break away. They met up with the mainstream standardized test scores, and then they started to just skyrocket because of really that foundation that's built and the passion that students then have. They don't get to 5th grade and they're burned out on, cognitive thinking already before their minds are even ready for it. So yeah, we have a lot we could say about that.
Yeah. A lot for a future podcast. I can already tell we're pretty much out of time, but I just want to last thing we have is this section that's kind of a catch-all for a few other comments that parents gave us, and I want to just kind of talk on some of these. So some parents have requested transportation options. I would love to have that as an option. I don't know if maybe Bernie or Morgan can talk about that. I know you guys looked into that when you were doing your charter, when the school was starting. I just don't believe there are any transportation options available to us. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. For the size that we are and where our students are coming from, currently we don't have the opportunity for a district partnership for transportation. There are, and that's why we really try to encourage carpooling. And actually, if you are looking for help with getting your kids rides to school, that's something that the PCC could work on, and probably Birdie could be a point of contact too. Like just letting her know, like, I would be interested in carpooling. Do you know of other families who would be interested in carpooling? We have to be a little bit more creative with our grassroots sort of,
And I have
connecting
done that,
around
but I have done
transportation.
it before, like I'm always like, oh, this person lives there, this person lives there.
Another comment we had, and maybe Maggie can speak to this one, there was suggestions for adding a counselor to school. I know we've been working on that. Actually, today we just had our fire inspection, which was a part of that. Maggie, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Lake County Office of Education has a counseling program where we can get someone to actually come out here to the school and work with our kiddos who, need help with social and emotional processing and regulation and all of those things. And so we needed to prepare a room. We've prepared a pull-out room for that. It meets the specifications. We needed to have our inspections done. So hopefully we'll be able to get a counselor in here soon that will be able to work with kids. And also, in addition to that, I sent out information about the Wings of Hope school-based grief counseling program, and this is through Lake County Hospice. And I would encourage families that have experienced bereavement or grief to participate in this. This is a 6-week grief support group for kids beginning at the end of the month. So, and the idea is that if kids meet in a group and they just do art activities and they explore emotions, they're not going to be pressured to talk about the person that they've lost, because that could be really difficult, especially for little kids. But it's a wonderful resource and service available that we're hoping to offer our kids. So I'd strongly encourage you to have a look at the message I sent out, have a look at the information. There is a permission form if you would like your child to participate. And also parents need support as well. So this Wings of Hope program also has grief counseling services for adults and for families, because we have to engage in self-care so that we can take care of our kiddos. And so there are family camps, there are 1-day camps, 3-day camps, support groups for men. So there's a whole variety of support and services available that we're really happy to be able to partner with Wings of Hope to offer this. So yeah, please get in contact with us if you have further questions about this, and we're just really excited to be able to offer this for the kids and the families.
Thank you, Maggie. And also, I wanted to comment that we are actively looking for a new teacher to hire for next year, a Waldorf trained teacher. So we've already interviewed one. It is looking really promising. So we are, as part of our continual expansion plans, we'll be not only adding classroom spaces, but also adding teachers. And so we're actively working on finding a really good fit for our campus. A couple other little comments that are down here. Request from parents to separate the TK and kindergarten classrooms. I think that's what we're going to do next year, because next year we particularly are looking at younger TK aged kids coming in as soon as they turn age 4, I believe, beginning of September. So we are going to be restructuring the way that we do things in our kindergarten and TK classrooms, and so we'll probably be having a separate by some sort of a fuzzy area there with where that separation happens, but there will be definitely like a younger class and an older class for kindergarten TK.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Birdie, you want to talk more about that, Birdie, or is that good?
That's exactly it. Yeah, we're gonna have the younger classroom and the older classroom. Yeah, there'll still be those kind of in the middle guys, that because the mixed age has a lot of benefit as well, but the difference between a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old is a lot. So we are changing that next year. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And then just the last thing, the bathroom facilities. I know, especially if you have kids in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, I'm sure it's not fun to see your kids using the porta potties it's not the only option. It's not like they can't come into the main room and request to use the restroom in here. But this is just a function of our limited resources, and it's all we could do this year. And as soon as we have the funds to do something different, we will do something different. So if this is something you feel really strongly about and want to help us raise funds, please help us. We would love to put in some proper restroom facilities for the students there. So, but in the interim, in the time being, porta potties are going to be our sort of overfill, whatever you want to call it, when we have to have more facilities and we just don't have enough space in the building for accommodating all the restroom needs. So the porta potties are going to be what we do there. So, okay, maybe just one last little round robin. Does anybody have any concluding thoughts they want to say before we wrap this up? Or does that kind of let you guys go one at a time?
Anybody?
I'll just say I'm really grateful too for all of the feedback that the parents gave, and we want to keep the conversation open. So please feel free to email any of us. All of us have Shade Canyon emails that are our first name at shadecanyon.org, and we're always happy to hear from you. And yeah, we just want to keep the conversation going and continue to build the school community that we all envision for this to be the best environment for our kids and our families.
Yeah, and I would like to reiterate that it's I really do appreciate the time that so many families took to respond to our survey. It really helps us to establish that dialogue, and it's so important for home and school to work together in partnership so that we can do what's best for the kids. So I appreciate the engagement, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue.
I agree. I love hearing from parents, so thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to thank you all for taking the time to come on here. This has been really, really helpful just to hear the vision of what we're doing from all of the different people that help pull this off. And so I'm looking forward to maybe the next one we'll bring in the teachers. And I think we'll just see if the parents, so if you're a parent and you've listened to this, or if you're a prospective parent and you've listened to this and you thought this was really cool, you like this, let us know, because that would be helpful for us to know if we should continue to use this format in the future. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.